Socialism, not globalism, will be our credo.
What is it you're waiting for? Do you even know anymore?
These are people who work hard, but no longer have a voice. I am your voice.
Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new live stream. Make sure you guys hit that like button down below. Make sure we can get as many likes as possible. We already have 500 viewers already watching the stream. That's great. Make sure you guys like, subscribe. We're almost to 189K. I think we're probably going to hit it on stream. But we put the music back on. We had a little, I sometimes I don't like putting the full, music on, because if I'm ready to go, I'm ready to go. But, we got a minute or so in there, have some people come in and get ready, and now we can turn on the stream because we have a lot to get to. We're going to get to some of the JD Vance stuff because there's a lot of bad takes, and we're going to cut right through those bad takes, as that's what we do here. But we have polls, and everyone's acting like the sky is falling because Donald Trump is leading the popular vote against Kamala Harris by 1.7 points. And I've covered this in several videos, but I need to cover it again, and I want to get directly to the people, get the people's direct thoughts on pretty much everything. We'll take calls, probably around the hour mark or so on the Discord. If you guys want to join that, join up on the website, redeaglepolitics.com. $5 a month you can get in. If not, that's okay, but you can't call in. So either way, Donald Trump is currently leading Kamala Harris by 2 points nationally, but for some reason it feels like, on a lot of people, at least, it feels like to them that the sky is falling, it's collapsing, it's caving in, and it's like people need to relax. They need to just relax. It's uncertainty. I get it. I understand. This election's not over. With Biden, it probably was over, but we understand how they operate. They try to, pull things out of their rear end and see how it works out for them. But you look at this, Donald Trump is at 47.9%. He's at 48. He never polled that high against Biden. Donald Trump has never polled at 47.9% against Joe Biden. And he's kind of still getting a convention bump in a way. But you look at Kamala Harris. She's there. She's at 46.2%. So she's galvanizing some of the Biden support, if anything. And it's possible it could be a response bias. And there's some bad polls out there. Reuters. Oh, man, they released a poll today that showed Trump at 36% favorable, but Kamala was at like 50. But they didn't release a top line. And it's like, seriously, they're doing this. There's no way Kamala's approval jumped up 20 points over the past week. I mean, there's no way. Obviously the media is going to bat for her. We know that. Obviously, Donald Trump is somebody who, he's not losing support though. He's not losing support to Kamala, and we know it. And the fact that Trump lost support, ridiculous amount, when in every other poll, even the polls that show Harris gaining, Trump is gaining support. But that poll shows Trump losing, even though it's still like the highest overall in like the history of the poll. It's just a really awful poll for Trump approval wise. But Harris is surging. It's a response bias. And you could be seeing that in the national polling. Every single summer, we've seen one in favor of the Democrats going all the way back to 2004. Ever since polling became a thing. Usually it was in June, but we didn't see it this time. We saw it in favor of Trump. And now could we be seeing the opposite, because Democrats in many cases are enthused. They have a reason to be hopeful. They're like, oh, it might not be Trump. It's going to be Kamala, which again, Kamala Harris could be, I think she's weaker on paper, to be honest. Doesn't mean she's going to be easier to beat than current Biden, because obviously there's a lot of other factors, a lot of other metrics that play into electoral politics than that. But when you look at this, it's like Donald Trump is in a very historically good position, and people just need to relax. They're acting like the house is on fire. They're blaming JD Vance for things that he said 2-3 years ago. And it's like, We'll get to that, but Trump did not fall in the polls, first of all. And second of all, Harris didn't gain because of Vance. Plain and simple. Trump could have picked Rubio. He could have picked Burgum. He could have picked Youngkin. He could have picked anybody else, and his number would probably still be where it's at, and Kamala's would still be where it's at. And the more they attack JD, the more they're distracting from attacking Trump, and that helps Trump if they're going to be attacking his number 2, which again, the running mates never, you don't want to say never, because you never know. But usually, historically, they don't have an impact. In fact, people will blame Sarah Palin for 2008, but after McCain picked Palin, he surged in the polls. Palin was his energy boost, and it was short-lived, honestly. But, the same polls that have Vance underwater by 10 points, favorably wise, they had Sarah Palin up 20 points, favorably wise. It's kind of an interesting thing to think about. But either way, Palin rounded out the ticket, in my opinion, for McCain, because McCain is an establishment Republican. He picked somebody that was younger, brought something to the table, because Democrats had the Obama mania. You needed something to counter it. And she, came from the more proto-Tea Party side of the Republican Party. Donald Trump picked Vance. That's an interesting pick. It's a double down pick, but it's not necessarily, in my opinion, a bad pick. And it's not like Vance is somebody that holds back the ticket, because Donald Trump is just Donald Trump. I mean, the guy is incredible. And whether you like him or whether you hate him, you cannot deny the fact that he's one of the most consequential people, politically speaking, ever. Period. Of my lifetime. He has changed discourse. He's an incredible human being. The same guy that gets shot in the air, came this close away from death, and throws his fist up in the air and says, fight, fight, fight. And the next morning he's going golfing like nothing happened. I mean, the guy is a one-of-a-kind figure. Make no mistake about it. It's honestly, if this was another foreign leader, we wouldn't even believe it. We'd be like, oh, this is like the Kim Jong-un story all over again. But this is real. This is documented. And you have a warrior in Trump, and they realized that they couldn't beat him. And even with Vance, they couldn't beat Trump. So that's why they swapped out Joe Biden. We'll never hear from him again, for Kamala Harris. Kind of going to miss Biden to an extent, because it was getting so bad to the point where it was comical. And that's not to take away from Biden being a horrible president. That's not to take away from him destroying the country. But at a certain level, it was kind of funny. Okay, Kamala Harris is the opposite, because she brings the horrible aspects without any of the entertainment value. And no, you're not going to sell me on, oh, she cackles. It's like, no, it's not a meme. It's kind of just creepy. They call Vance weird. Kamala's weird. And I see so many Republicans, they're calling Vance weird too. But they're not calling Kamala weird. What are you doing? We have 100 days to bury this ticket, whoever the other dope that'll be on the ticket is, and you're attacking our ticket. What's wrong with you? You want to lose. You want mass amnesty. We know we're going to have mass amnesty. That's not a conspiracy. It's not a conspiracy at all. Elizabeth Warren is calling for citizenship for illegals, and she says Harris is going to get it done. You see how these people are acting. Warren and Harris were close friends because they were both the farthest left lunatics in the Senate, right next to Bernie Sanders. So you look at Elizabeth Warren, this is a political gift if we actually pounce on it. But instead, I see the opposite. I see a lot of people fighting, and maybe it's just Twitter. Maybe it's just X. I know it's just X because people here aren't doing the same by and large. And maybe it's, you take a step back a little bit. Sometimes you got to have a little bit of a break from social media. I'm a tough guy. I don't need to do that. But, all in all, I think that there are some people that are just acting a fool that need to take a step back, that need to settle down because they're acting like they're going to lose. Because why? We're not winning by 3 points in the polls. You're up by 2. You're winning by 2. There's not a single poll that has Kamala Harris winning, if you apply the Electoral College popular vote split. There's not. And you might be seeing a sugar high. You might be seeing an insane bias. And is it possible the media will try to keep it up, but the pendulum usually swings at some point back? The only exception would be if it was Trump and Biden would keep declining and declining and declining, and Trump would just go out there and beat him. But still, I don't think it would have been a landslide. Biden could be on his deathbed. He could be a toaster. Trump's not going to crack 400 electoral votes, most likely. Democrats, they don't care who their VP is. They don't care who their top of the ticket is. None of them called Harris a bad pick. None of them called Harris a bad pick. Even the far left who didn't want Harris, they defended her. They were right behind her. They were right beside her at every step of the way. But I see people attacking Vance that are on the right that buy into this nonsense about Vance. And it's like, no, just stop what you're doing. People in the real world don't see it that way. First it was, he's not charismatic enough. Then he lights up the arena in Minnesota last night. Everybody saw it. And now it's like, oh, well, the left is calling him weird. Seriously, you want to change your VP pick because the left called them weird. If the left is attacking the campaign by calling the VP pick weird, which, they did it to Pence mainly when he was in office. They didn't do it at the time because it wouldn't have stuck. Even the Clinton campaign was more competent than that. It's like, no, it doesn't. That means you're winning. You're winning if they're attacking the VP. You're winning if they're calling the VP weird because they can't beat the top of the ticket. They can't beat Trump, the same man you said couldn't win an election. Now you're blaming the second in command because Trump can win and he probably still does. But do they want him to? Do these neo-never-Trumpers want him to win? That's another question. The media is attacking the Republican VP pick. Wow, they've done that how many times? Dan Quayle, Dick Cheney, Sarah Palin, Mike Pence. I don't really think they needed to do anything with Paul Ryan. He kind of did it to himself, but you get the point. You get the point. They attack every single possible VP pick. And somebody shared a quote with me on social media where it said, if you don't have any baggage, it's assigned to you. And it's true. They will assign you baggage. It doesn't matter when you set the narrative. But so many people won't take to social media and start attacking Josh Shapiro like I have, start attacking Mark Kelly like I have, any possible Democrat VP hopeful like I have. They're too busy sitting up here and attacking our own ticket. Seriously, the same people that said we need to beat Biden, they only cared about beating Biden. It's kind of a problem. In my book, it's kind of a little bit of a problem. These people are not our friends in many cases, but again, I think it's more of an online thing. I see 3 different groups of people attacking Trump, and we can get to it a little bit later on. But I want to kind of get into some of the J.D. Vance stuff. Because, and I have a list written down here, because they keep attacking him for the most inconsequential things, and it proves that they don't have much dirt on him. Apparently, they're mad because he wore a costume where he was dressed up as a Soviet wrestler. A Soviet wrestler. He has a communist or a Soviet Russian symbol flag on his shirt. He's wearing a costume. Anybody with, a 5 IQ, 5-year-old can determine he's at a Halloween party. Everybody's wearing costumes. And they're like, run this everywhere in Miami. Do you think they care? The voters in Miami, the people that fled socialism, do you think they care more about a Halloween costume? Or do they care more about Kamala Harris co-sponsoring Bernie Sanders' healthcare plan? Or Kamala Harris co-sponsoring the socialist Green New Deal? Seriously, where is I think this account that I was replying to is not a conservative, but I see so many people on the right piling on instead of defending Vance or, better yet, attacking Kamala Harris because she is number one. Trump's doing it. His campaign is doing it. That's not why I'm not really worried, because they actually have the laundry list of dirt. They're going through it. Trump's rally in Minnesota last night, he did well. Vance did well. You liked it. I liked it a lot. I think most people liked it if they watched it. But when we're just analyzing the state of affairs in the online sphere, you'd act like the sky is falling. And not everybody's going to resonate with it because some people are not on social media, but I kind of want to get the vibe. Is it like this in the real world? I tend to believe not. Because first of all, Democrats are energized. They're annoying. They're obnoxious. They're not really resonating with the median voter. It's just like, yo, slay Queen Kamala, all these obscure references. And then the Harris campaign, yeah, they've raised a lot of money. It's true. They did raise a lot of money. They were down. A lot of that money was just unfrozen that Biden was going to get. It's true. But they raised a lot of money. And on the other side, we're likely needing to do the same thing. I think we are. Trump just met with donors today. He raised a few $1 million, and he's getting money from the Bitcoin people. And I know the Elon Musk, the report was a little murky on how much is he actually giving per month, but he did set up a super PAC for Trump. He did not back off of that. He just said he was not committing to the 45 million amount, but he could very well be giving a lot of money to Donald Trump. Trump has a lot of people. And the J.D. Vance pick that so many people hate, who likes J.D. Vance? Millennials, Bitcoin people, big tech bros. They have a lot of money, and a lot of them are becoming more and more, dare I say the word, red-pilled or whatever. They're moving to the right. And as a result, Donald Trump is taking advantage of it And by putting somebody like J.D. Vance on his ticket, he's able to get that money, possibly even more of that money, and then use that money down the stretch where it counts to go out there and win. That's what we need to do. So furthermore, there's plenty of other things about Vance. They say he said something about cat ladies, which, again, people may not like what he said or the way he said it, but it's just one of those comments that's an offhand comment the left is going to run with, and they'll probably forget about it within a week. Like, people are acting like it's Mitt Romney's 47% moment. Like, seriously, they think it's Access Hollywood all over again. These people are not serious people. What Vance said was true. There's a lot of people leading our country now, especially in the Democrat Party, and there are a couple people in the Republican Party, like Lindsey Graham, for example, warmonger, and he's a Trump fan, but that doesn't mean that he's immune from criticism either. But you look at a lot of these people like Cory Booker, Pete Buttigieg at the time, even Kamala Harris. I mean, she has stepchildren, but you have so many people that are running the Democrat Party that are basically, glorified cat ladies in a way. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, she's in her 30s now. She's telling people how to live. She's being very patronizing. She's lecturing families on what is best for them, but she's never had a family before. Now, I'm not saying you have to have a family to be in politics, and he's not, criticizing, all women without kids. And he said in the speech that there are some people that can't have kids for some medical reasons, and he sympathizes with them, and that's that. But people are just blowing it out of proportion online. I don't even think it's hitting the airwaves as much in the real world, but if people hear what he's saying, it's like, well, he was right. People that don't have kids have less of a stake in the future than people that do. And I don't have kids. I don't yet. I mean, one day, hopefully I will. But until that day comes, I don't have that stake. I'm not going to, try to claim I have that stake, and I'm not going to be pissed off for somebody telling the truth. It's partially why people have kids, so they can carry on their lineage, so they can have a stake in the future. But you have people like Kamala Harris, you talk about weird and families. She's out there flirting with climate hysteria measures that would possibly lower the birth rate even more, which is a problem. They want to lower the birth rate. Vance is bringing that to the forefront, a very good thing. You talk about Social Security. It's not sustainable. It's not. It's a pyramid scheme, and the pyramid's upside down. And that's no fault to Social Security or people that are on it. But I'm just saying that, they want to replace, and they say you can't say that word, but they want to replace the current population. Over time, it will be, but just with basic facts and numbers, and they brag about it if you say it's a good thing, with all these people from around the world. And those people, when they get here, their birth rates decline, and then they import more, and then they import more. And it's still not enough, but it's changing the fabric of America, plain and simple. But you're not allowed to say that. You're not allowed to mention it, but it's true. It's 100% true, and it needs to be talked about. And honestly, I think it's a winning issue. A lot of talk about illegal immigration. I think it's a very, an easy fixable problem. But legal immigration, we've seen poll after poll, they say lower it, but they say Vance bad because of this. They say Vance is bad because of some of these things, the left-wing smears. Well, the left they're the only ones trying to get Trump to get rid of him. Chuck Schumer said Trump should get rid of him. Why are you siding with Chuck Schumer? Why are you siding with Clinton strategists saying dump Vance for Haley? Like, these are serious, serious questions. But furthermore, they don't have any dirt on him, period. Because why are they making up lies? This is the latest one. J.D. Vance had sex with a couch. That's not a joke. AP wrote an article, correction. J.D. Vance did not have sexual intercourse with a couch, because they took pages out of his book and they edited them to say that he did. And honestly, let's be real here. If somebody was 17 and they do something like that, I've never done anything like that. I wouldn't want to do anything like that. I don't condone that behavior. But, face facts. If 17-year-old J.D. Vance did something a little sussy with a piece of furniture, who cares? Like, I don't care. I don't think that the American people care. It's kind of funny, but they're making up these lies and they're running with them. And the Kamala Harris headquarters account, they're sharing it everywhere. They're making jokes about it, knowing it's fake, because they have nothing. They have nothing. And the conservatives will lie down and they'll say, oh, well, this is bad for us. Why don't you fight back? Why don't you grow a set of balls? Because you clearly have none. You couldn't even get with a couch if you couldn't even do it. You couldn't have intercourse with a couch if you didn't want to, because you don't even have anything down there, because you're a pussy. Plain and simple. Sorry, excuse the language. It's true. It's true. But furthermore, They also are upset at him because he went to a gun show, and they took a picture of him at a gun show. And in the background, there's a booth, and somebody was selling memorabilia from World War II that happened to have swastikas on them. And it's like, of course, these people don't know what they're talking about because they've never been to a gun show. I've only been to one gun show, and that's what people sell at gun shows. They sell memorabilia from war, whether American memorabilia or, they have family members who were soldiers that ended up killing people on the other side in World War II, Germany, Imperial Japan, and they take their guns, they take their weaponry as a symbol of pride. Because they took them out, and then people sometimes sell them. And maybe some of the people that buy that stuff probably, are unsavory, but Vance wasn't even buying that stuff. It's just history buff, history nerd type of stuff. I'm not really that much into it, but some people find it cool, and that's okay. It doesn't necessarily mean that they have the views of the people of the memorabilia that they're buying. In most cases, they don't. And that's another takeaway. So all the lies about Vance, they're all fake. They're everywhere because they can't attack the number one. They can't beat the number one, and they know they can't beat the number one, so they're going after the number two, and it's not working out for them. It's not. You're seeing the media just start to put their foot on the gas regarding Kamala Harris, and people are losing their mind over it. They're losing their mind because they can't handle it. It's like the race is Trump's to lose. Donald Trump is, his VP pick is not the reason why the polling is a little bit more tightened. And honestly, I question the polls even being accurate. Not because they don't fit my narrative, but because why before Kamala entered was she doing worse than when she did enter and do nothing? That's another question. It could be response bias. Maybe it is Democrats coming home. Who knows what it is? But when we conducted our poll in Michigan that Donald Trump himself shared on social media, you could tell, in the sampling, there was a Democrat oversample. Definitely you weigh down for it, but sometimes it seeps into the independent margins. And maybe Democrats being more enthusiastic is causing a response bias. It's possible. Am I saying it's guaranteed? No. But do I think that the shift is, astroturfed a little bit? Could the polls be on a sugar high? It's possible. But if that's a sugar high, then the sugar high is going to come down eventually. Now, I don't know if the polls are really going to move. They could move away from Trump this week. But the polls had Trump down. How much did they have him down by at this point? 9 points. They actually had him up in 2016. That was like one of the few days he was up over Hillary. But they had him down by 9 points in 2020, and people were like, "Oh, we're going to win this." Now it's like he's up by 2. Oh, the sky is falling. Trump's making errors, which they can't even name the errors. So again, we need to fight like hell. We need to vote. This is not over, but again, just the doomerism. There's a difference between actual, reason for concern and just blatant demoralization. I see the latter. 2020, Trump was at his weakest, given the circumstances, and shenanigans notwithstanding, Donald Trump was an average of 7,000 votes flipping across 3 states from getting a second term. And people want to pretend like, oh, he has to, climb a mountain to win now. No, that's what they're trying to do, and they're failing, and you're demoralizing people by acting like this. That's not to say you can't take Kamala seriously, but the way some people frame it is as if they're rooting for Trump to lose because the data's just not there. Trying to get people out to vote instead of tweeting, maybe go phone bank or something and be useful for once in some of these people's lives. Not all of them, but still. But that's pretty much it. I see a lot of dooming, and I don't want to see dooming. We're doing very well here on the channel. We're hitting new heights, every single day. We're 9 subscribers away from 189,000. Make sure you guys subscribe. Let's get to 189. We're going to 200K. We're going to 200K probably within a month or so because we're getting closer and closer. People are paying more and more attention than ever to the election. But we have a lot of super chats to get to. We have the poll. 12% think Trump made a mistake with Vance. That's far from a majority. I'd like to hear why some of them feel that way. Maybe it's because they want somebody else. And if they want somebody else, but they're fine with him, that's one thing. If they think he made a big mistake for his electoral chances, that's another. And I think that number probably is far, far weaker. So that's that. So we have super chats. Johnny Heartdog for 10. Says JD nailed it out of the park yesterday with his speech. The only issue I have with him was charisma. Other than that, he's the best possible pick. I'm predicting probably another week with the honeymoon period. It'll all fizzle out. Also for $20, Johnny Heartdog says charisma wins elections, not policy. Unfortunately, once again, JD is spot on with policy and his speeches have good substances. But if he wants to win in 28, he's going to have to work on the charisma. Well, it came out. It did come out, which is good. But 2028, we'll get there when we get there. We may not have a country depending on what happens in November. That's the dooming people should engage in, because instead of dooming about Trump and just saying, oh, Kamala's going to win or whatever, and just acting a fool, maybe doom about if she wins, we're not going to win again, then people will get motivated, because it's true. I think Trump can win. I think he's the favorite. I think he's the 2-1 favorite. Against Biden, he was like the 5-1 favorite. It was getting ridiculous. But this notion that, oh, it's over, the dust hasn't even fully settled yet, and he's still winning. He's still winning. So, again, we talk about charisma and policy, though. I agree that both matter, though. I don't think charisma is the only thing that wins, because if you have a lot of charisma, but you have really unpopular ideas, you're probably not going to win, but you might do better than somebody without charisma that has those same ideas. But if you are just a robot who has good ideas, again, you're also not going to get far. So people need to come into their own, and I agree. That does include Vance. That includes a lot of politicians in Washington. And I think Vance did for a little bit. I think his speaking is getting better and better. He's never really spoke in front of 10,000 people before. He's done it this third time this past week. Oh, yeah, they were also mad at him for making a joke about Mountain Dew. He said Democrats call voter ID racist, and they would probably say that me drinking Mountain Dew is racist. And then an Atlantic writer wrote an article about why Mountain Dew is racist. So people were mad at Vance for saying that. They said, oh, it's a stupid thing to say, but it's true. They literally did it. We have proof. He won at the end of the day. He won. So, end of discussion. But we'll get to this. We'll get to more super chats. We have a lot of them. John Waffle H2P says, I don't know why Trump is still laying low. The polls are super close. We need more 2016 Trump now. Well, I don't think he's laying low. He did a rally yesterday. Some people will say, why was he in Minnesota? Minnesota's probably not going to flip. Well, first of all, we don't know that. Second of all, he scheduled that rally when Biden was his opponent. And Biden probably, if he stayed in the race, would have lost Minnesota, or it would have been a very, very close state. So Trump will be in Harrisburg on Wednesday, and J.D. Vance will be in Nevada and Arizona. Trump will probably do a rally or two before the end of the week, so I don't know if he's fully laying low, but I agree that, down the stretch, you got to ramp it up for sure. John Waffle H2P says, people need to understand this is the most important election since 1960. If we lose, our country will be screwed for decades, maybe generations to come. It's true. They don't understand it. People are messing around. Oh, let's attack Trump because he, something he did in 2020 that I didn't like. Which, again, it's not a big number of people, but it's a very loud minority that's trying to sow a lot of discord and division, and we can't allow that to happen. Joseph Sachi for 20 says, hi, I'm from Blue State, Connecticut. I know Trump's doing well when these self-absorbed white liberals have nothing to say. Do you think Kamala's poll numbers will drop to or below Biden levels before the election? Well, it's possible. It depends on the campaign she runs. It depends on the frequency of these ads. Trump is doing a good job defining Kamala Harris. Are the ads reaching enough people? There are ads on the airwaves that people are seeing, which is good. But Kamala Harris, she's not really on the air yet. They're spending money on Zoom calls. They're fundraising, but where's their money going? Oh, white women for Kamala. Like, what is this? Like, are they trying to do white identity politics, but woke? It's just weird. It's just bizarre what they're trying to do. This does not appeal to those workers or those families in the Rust Belt. Nothing they're doing is. So unless there's some concrete policy agenda they're crafting, what is she running on? Oh, Biden's second term? Because that was not popular. Biden being old had, something to do with it, but it didn't have everything to do with it. Because Biden pre-debate a lot of people probably viewed him to be more likable than somebody like a Kamala Harris. And as of right now, maybe that's changed a little bit, but Kamala Harris, I mean, she's out there. She's having a really astroturfed level of enthusiasm. But is that usually going to last? Is it going to work out for her? Because I feel like most people, who's changing their vote? Who is saying, I got to vote for Trump, but I'm voting for Harris now? Nobody. Maybe a very small subset of like women. Maybe. And that could be an issue. But is it going to be enough the way things are going? Probably not. But people need to just make sure they vote. Make sure that they can get to the polling place, because we have about a month and maybe a week or two before people can actually start voting. And they need to make sure that they vote and make a plan, and ideally do it before Election Day. Because if you get sick on Election Day because you think waiting is going to help for some reason, and well, you don't get to make it to the polls. We did a poll here on the channel where roughly around 20% of the audience that supports Trump and was of legal voting age didn't even vote in 2020. So again, that's kind of a little bit of an issue when people aren't showing up to the polls when they can show up to the polls, because we have more than enough votes. We have all the votes we need, but we need people showing up to the polls and making a plan to vote. And it doesn't really matter how they do it, so long as they're comfortable with it. But ideally do it before Election Day if you can, because you never know what could happen on Election Day. So I think we need to have people taking advantage of it. Early voting, the first day of early voting in, Arizona, for example, Trump needs to hold 2 or 3 rallies in Arizona. Make sure you can get all those people out and just barnstorm the state and swamp them then, and then come back and swamp them later, because we have more than enough to do it twice. I think we are the majority, and the problem is we are the silent majority. That's why we're not showing up. That's an issue. But polls are now showing that we are the majority, and that non-voters typically are favoring Trump by a lot. That was never the case before. We are currently the silent majority, but we have to go out there and vote, period. That's it. So John Waffle H2P for 20 says, Vance is amazing. It's the Democrat base that is motivated again. They will start operations again with Mark Cuban, Bill Gates, and their loyal cattle of big tech donors vote early so we can combat their corruption. I agree. People don't really change their votes, so keep that in mind. Carl Peterson says, Jolly Ranchers and jelly beans, relax. Everyone, exactly. RELAX. It's true. Relax. It's an old quote from Aaron Rodgers, the quarterback then of the Packers, now the Jets. And I'm not a big fan of him, but he was right about one thing, that people need to sometimes take a step back. Oh, you're 1-2. Just relax. We got this. And then what did they do? They, went far, but not too far. Jared says, I've always wondered why in the ECTH, I don't know what that means, more states don't have the split electoral college votes like Maine or Nebraska. How would this change elections if all the states had their votes like this? Would it help us? I think it depends on the election. I think that we would have lost 2020 if states did that. But it does make shenanigans a bit harder, though. I'll say that. Tom Josephs has heard a rumor that Trump might replace Vance, and he thought, it's not true. Why are we going to cave to the left? Why are we going to, the left is attacking him, so we must get him out of there? This is loser behavior that so many people on the right engage in. Not Trump necessarily, but so many people. Oh, well, he said something about cat ladies. Nobody likes cat ladies, first of all. They're a memed-on demographic. Second of all, that's not really what he said. If you listen to it, he's right. Politicians that don't have families are lecturing families when they have a less of a stake in this country than people that do, or in the future of the country, is what he said, which is true. I don't have kids. People with children have more of a stake than I do. I'm not offended by it. In fact, I'd be offended if people were. I want to have children, so I have more of a stake in the future. Period. End of discussion. There's nothing wrong with that. I agree with every single thing he said. Everything he said. Ice Cream Junkie says, Alan Lichtman predicted a couple days ago that Harris wins 8 of 13 keys. Should we be concerned about that? No, I don't believe so. It doesn't mean anything. He had Biden winning with 9 of them. Now he's senile. He changes his model every time. It's historically inconsistent the way he interprets the model. And he has TDS. He, for some reason, thinks, oh, there was no primary contest key. Really? Nobody voted for Harris. She got these delegates, but nobody voted for her. She didn't get a single primary vote, a single primary delegate. So that doesn't clear the 75% threshold. Also in 2016, he had the third party key going as it was turned. But Gary Johnson and RFK Jr. are polling about the same. So why did it get turned then but not turned now? That's a question. Also, he considers the economy strong when public perception of the economy is that it is not strong. It is weak. Maybe it's a little bit less of an issue with Kamala Harris instead of Biden, but that just means that the border becomes an even bigger issue. So, you do the math. Let's see. David Mendez TV says Kennedy is now a threat to Trump, should drop out. Yeah, possibly. If polls keep showing, like now it's a complete wash. He was helping him by a point, now it's a complete wash. Yeah, it's possible that he might drop out. Who knows? I know he said he wouldn't, but he eventually might. If he wants to spite the DNC, he will. But if he's a plant for the DNC, then he won't. End of discussion. Mr. VIP says, are you concerned about ballot harvesting again? Well, I'm a little bit less concerned because now we're starting to understand that we need to do it. I mean, ballot harvesting's always been a thing, period. Should it be banned? I think in many cases, yes. But while it's there, you can't win, to get rid of it. You're going to need to use it to your advantage. Absolutely, you're going to need to use it to your advantage. Let's see. BB says, CNN reported on Kamala's record you were thinking about that garbage ABC Ipsos favorables poll. That is garbage. People are nervous due to 22. And did I say CNN poll? I meant Ipsos. I believe I said Ipsos. But people are nervous due to them. I know, but they weren't nervous a month ago even. They were not nervous a month ago. I don't know what exactly changed other than the name at the top of the ticket. Everything else is pretty similar. So what can I say? Mike Oxard says their current strategy is Trump is weird. It's Kamala over. Yeah, exactly. If they're calling you weird, how are they winning? If they're taking everything you try to say out of context as their argument that anybody can see through, how are you winning? Like, this stuff does appeal to hardcore Democrats. It appeals to liberals. It energizes them. But does it do enough? Probably not. Ryan Amacher says, with what we know now, was it a bad decision for Trump to debate Biden so early in the campaign season? If no early debate, would Biden be still in the race? Well, I think they kind of wanted to test it out. And there's some people that'll, make rumors and say, well, they gave him the wrong pills or something so he would do weaker. And maybe there is merit to that. I don't know if they wanted to force him out or what the deal was. But it is weird seeing the media, who is basically the attorneys for the Biden administration, virtually speaking, defending every aspect of it. Now they turned on him and his numbers falter. So again, it's a little strange that they're just like, even now their strategy is so bad. It's awful. I don't know who this appeals to that wasn't already even voting for Biden. Let's see. But would he still be in the race, though? I don't know. I think that they did want an early debate to test this out, but it is possible there's an alternative reality where they don't do an early debate and they just go directly to the convention and then Biden's there. And maybe he'd be polling a point better, maybe. But Trump was already gaining before. I think this just kind of gave him a little bit extra momentum. Let's see. Joe K says Vance is the badass Marine, so much cooler than Kamala. I don't know if he gives off like the badass vibes, but it is true. When he leans into the energy like he did at that rally and feeds off of the crowd, and he's soft-spoken. I get it. I think that's not necessarily a bad thing. But when he gets hyped up, the way he got hyped up, and people were just, you got the whole crowd roaring. I mean, people liked the guy even before, even when he was doing all right. He wasn't doing phenomenal, charismatically speaking. I don't think it was anything to write home about charisma-wise, but last night was. So again, he's got to come into his own. VP picks usually have to do that, but for some reason, because he's Trump's VP and people are looking for a reason to be angry, now he's going to be under a lot of scrutiny. But either way, it's like all these comments and people taking them out of context. For Trump, it blows over. People forget Vance is number 2 to Trump. He doesn't necessarily have the effect, but he's on the same ticket. So one could say it'll stick even less to Trump. Cameron Campbell for 20 says, what I'm worried about is some of my coworkers that are saying, oh my God, she's awkward like me, someone young and new, or claiming Biden's failures are not her fault. How do I address these? Well, first of all, I think that they are all her fault. She was the second in command, and she played a direct role. Biden made her in charge of the border. The media at the time admitted it. Now they're saying she was never border czar. Well, that's not a formal title, but she was given the assignment. And it was in every single major news outlet. They covered it, but now it's a problem. Now, oh, she was never border czar. Well, what exactly changed? It's a really good question. But, you just have to defend Trump and his record, plain and simple. Like I said, I think you're going to have a gender divide. There's probably some men who were not voting for Trump that will vote for Trump now because they don't like Kamala Harris. But maybe there's some women who are going to be more enthused to vote for somebody like a Kamala Harris. So that's kind of what it comes down to. But it's not like Republicans are going to win that demographic of women anyways. We get clobbered with them every cycle, and I think trying to pander too much to them is kind of a waste of time. Ice Cream Junkie says, my grandmother, who's a lifelong Republican, refuses to vote for Trump solely because he's mean. What can I do to convince her to vote for the evil orange man? Well, she's a lifelong Republican. The question is, A, did she vote for Trump ever? And B, if you're a lifelong Republican, do you have values, period? Or are you going to let and allow the Kamala Harris administration take power? There will be no Republican Party. There will be none. It'll be a regional party, but there won't be a national Republican Party. We were right. Every fear-mongering aspect of Biden, we were right about. Everyone about Harris is even going to be more accurate because her record even backs it up while she's been VP. So keep that in mind. Bailey Spangler for 10 says, saw a Harris ad at the Atlanta airport today. No trans flags in this one. We shouldn't be dooming, but also not complacent. I'm more uneasy about the election now, but not dooming. Fight 3X. I agree. I don't think that's a bad mindset to have. I think it shakes it up. It makes you feel like, oh, we were on this trajectory. We don't know what trajectory you're on. You're flying blind, and you don't know what's going on for sure. But I don't think that there's a reason to sit here and say it's over and to just give up like some people I feel like are doing. I don't think it's a majority, but it's crazy. M for 10 says, if you're a Republican living in Clark County, Nevada, consider joining the Clark County Republican Party and become a precinct captain. Our goal is to have 500 captains, and we currently have 75. Well, that's an important advertisement because we probably have some people in here that are from the Vegas area, and they should be able to join that. Olivia Williams says, what did Trump mean when he said Christians don't need to vote in 4 years? Does that hurt in 28? Do you think Vivek and Vance have a nasty primary? I don't know who's going to run in 2028. I really don't know. They're friends, so I maybe one runs, one doesn't run. Probably Vance runs if Trump wins. But I think that what Trump is saying was obvious. Like, oh, things are going to be so good. A lot of people don't vote. Vote for me. You may never have to vote again because we'll fix everything. Now, is it a little facetious? Yes. Is it going to matter in 2028? No, because nobody's going to remember what he said in a week. So, Mike Oxard says, to me, Kamala is the night mode version of Hillary. Well, she's very similar in many ways. I will say that. Marilyn Degatti 83 says, any hope for election integrity in Pennsylvania? I would say that there definitely was that bill where they're going to, I think, keep the same system. But, in the midterms, they did count somewhat quickly. It wasn't exactly what it was in 2020. But, I don't know if there's any hope to have like a Florida-type system there by Election Day. M says, according to Jesse Law, Vance listens to Alex Jones. I don't think he listens to Alex Jones necessarily. He did say that Alex Jones is more of a valid source of information than Rachel Maddow, which everybody, I think, right of center and even probably just center in general could probably attest to that. LynRX52 for 50 Says, I love it when you tell it like it is and get a little riled up. Agree 100% with you on some of the right getting sackchy about something the left says. Aren't we past that at this point? We should all act more like campaign spokespeople. Yeah, exactly. If you're not defending everything Trump does or says for the next 100 days, what are you doing? I mean, the primary happened. Primary was how long ago? Like 7 months ago, it pretty much ended. Maybe 6 or 5 if you want to consider Haley as part of the primary and not some like Democrat infiltration operation. Exactly. You see 3 people, 3 groups, the DeSimps, these like abortion pro-clutchers. Oh, Trump doesn't want a national ban. Well, then good luck losing the election. Sorry. Plain and simple. He never supported it. You're like, he's not what he used to be. It's like, no, you're not what you used to be, apparently, because you supported him then, but you won't support him now. And then like the dissident style right, who I guess just tries to be edgy about everything. And even though Trump is talking about things like mass deportations and all these things that they've talked about doing for years, now apparently, oh, Trump is bad for X, Trump is bad for Y, Trump is bad for Z, all these reasons that are kind of facetious. So let's see. Wyatt says, Christ is king, you should vote, but remember nations in God's hand. Also watch My Last Days. It's an eye-opening animation of the Passion. Eric from Wisconsin says, you know who isn't a childless cat lady? Eric Hovde. Vote for Eric Hovde, fellow Wisconsinites. Yeah, exactly. Vote for Eric Hovde, the every stream advertisement. Joe K says, I think most young people would agree with Vance and would like to be afford to have children. Exactly. Olivia Williams says, Vance is a top 5 senator, so why downgrade him into a figurehead role? Also, you said the VP is not a double down pick. Vance, is that? What does he add? Well, I don't think he adds a lot electorally, maybe the Rust Belt. But I also don't think he detracts either. Usually you try to get something else. I said he was not my first choice for that reason. But as for the figurehead role, Vance is somebody that's more of like a hands-on type guy, I feel like. And, even looking back, and I found this out more recently about the staffing in Trump's first administration, the number one staffing spearheader was actually Mike Pence, who was the VP. And we talk about that being one of the biggest things that held back Trump's first administration and everything. Pence didn't do a whole lot besides that, but he was a negative influence on staffing. Vance is probably going to be a positive influence on staffing. So it seems like having Vance in there is a much, much needed net positive, one could argue, over somebody who is a little bit weaker. Somebody like a Burgum, I think, would have the same electoral impact as Vance. He wouldn't move the needle much. And part of it is because I see what happened when he picked Vance, and it hasn't moved the needle. So I'm a little bit more comfortable with it because Trump can get away with anything. But Burgum, his favorables were even lower, and he has less charisma, you could even argue. So I'm not really upset with the pick. I can't say I'm upset with it. Plain and simple. I can't say that it's like, the greatest strategic pick, but I can't say it's a horrible pick either. So, you learn a little bit as time goes on. I think that we all do. There's probably some things we don't know that we're about to find out. Every election cycle, you end up learning something new. It's just part of the way things go. But I can't say, Trump is like throwing the election, because we don't see a dent in the poll numbers. Bailey Spangler says, after following politics for 8 years, I'm convinced a very large portion of conservatives have a losing fetish. Exactly. They do. They want to be pushed around. They want the left to like them. That's not how we do things. I'm not saying touch third rails. I'm just saying, don't fully back down. Don't play too much defense. Play offense for once. I don't see enough offense against Harris. Maybe my feed is just, I guess you would say, being manipulated from interacting with doomers or whatever. But Punch a Bunch Bear says Lichtman is a fraud. I agree. Lichtman he was wrong. He was already proven wrong because Biden was removed as the nominee because he couldn't win when Lichtman said he had a better shot than Harris. So if Harris wins, he's still wrong. His keys are still wrong. Tucker Corngay for 20 says the average of every Trump v. Harris poll from 538 and RCP since the day Biden dropped, the general election is Trump by 1. In Pennsylvania, 1.6, Wisconsin, 0.1, North Carolina, +3, Georgia, +3, Michigan, +1.2, and Arizona plus 6.2, still up everywhere. Yeah, I mean, you can't look at these numbers and say, well, this is like a doomsday scenario. She's probably going to get a little bump of enthusiasm. I don't know if it's response bias or if it's Democrats coming home, but keep in mind, we covered this. Trump is still going up. It's just Harris is going up over Biden by more, so it looks like it's closer. Now, things can change. I'm not saying she can't take the lead. She doesn't have her convention yet, but will she even get a convention bump? Who knows? Maybe this is her convention bump, or maybe this is her ceiling. I don't know. Let's see. Lovely Six says, Kamala will pull the race card in the debate, so Trump must be ready to point out the black men she jailed for minor crimes and the Minneapolis Freedom Fund victims. I think that the latter is better than the former because, I don't know how this is going to go. Are you going to attack Kamala for being too tough on crime, which is the smart thing to do, or which is the dumb thing to do? Or are you going to attack her for being too weak on crime, which is the smart thing to do? So it is true that in a Democrat primary, Tulsi Gabbard destroyed her about her hypocrisy. And it is technically hypocritical what she did, but that's not something that I feel like is going to play into the rhetoric. If you want to have the black appeal, talk about, all the black people that are killed by the people that she let out of prison or she helped bail out of prison. Like, that's a big, big scandal that needs to really be exploited because it's horrible. And he's exploiting it. I'm not saying he's not. But Mike Griffin says, how much do you think Kamala will pull ahead as the DNC bump? I don't know. I think we're going to get a better look at the polls this week. The DNC is not for another, 3-4 weeks. Roman Wolf Gaming says Kamala hides in deep blue states. Rallies are bad. Well, she did a rally in Pennsylvania. She went to a nursing home. She had like 50 people. This is supposed to be her rally. They say they're going to flip Florida because there were 100 golf carts for Kamala Harris. Who knows how much they paid for those in Florida at the Villages. But Biden had similar rallies at the Villages that were bigger. So how does that really prove anything? The Villages are going to vote Republican anyways, 68-32 or so. This is what they just don't get it. They just don't understand. But they're really, if Trump wins, which I still think is the likeliest course of action, the tears, the salt, the meltdown is going to be far greater than it would be if Biden was the nominee. It'd be a closer election, probably, yeah, than the trajectory the race was going on. But I mean, look, Kamala Harris is getting glowing press coverage right now. She might actually be going up in the polls for a little while. Then the ads will hit, and then she'll slip down, I guess, in the polls a little bit. So that's just how it works. Trump's favorables right now are like his highest ever, aside from that one garbage Reuters or Ipsos poll. Not Reuters, but was ABC. ABC Ipsos, and they didn't even have a top line. But besides that poll, you look at Trump's favorable rating, and he's at 44, take that poll out of the equation, he's like at 45%. He didn't have a favorable rating that high ever, but his callback job approval is positive. That's kind of what matters. Kamala's job approval is down 20 points or so. Let's see. But Brittany says, tell people people like Nick Fuentes are not helping with the anti-Trump stuff. Seems like controlled opposition to me. A lot of people are saying that. Plain and simple, I think it's strange at the very minimum because a lot of these people on the more dissident side in general, him and his following is a big part of it. But, Trump said something positive about Israel or something. But then you look at his 2016 speech and he did the same exact thing. So why was it not a problem then, but it's a problem now? I just don't get it. But again, these people are very I guess you'd say on the fringes of politics, plain and simple. They're not like influential of the average voting median voter who's in their 50s or in the Republican side might even be the low 60s. So technically the demoralization doesn't help, but what can I say? Dylan Snyder says, hey, I'm a Vermonter and first-time voter. I used to fear both Trump and Hillary in 2016, but he proved his worth. I'm sad that some are still scared of him. Well, I mean, he's been president. That's the thing. You think, the Democrat attack lines, he's going to be a dictator. They never worked because, every time Trump says something like that, which some people say is dumb for him to say. I don't care that much because it's just so facetious and it gives them something to whine about that doesn't really play out well to the average voter. It just doesn't. Harris is a train wreck, and she did play a role in covering up the Biden problem, and that's another thing. Let's see, Seahawks. Brendan Nelson says Trump plus 20 with white voters. In 2016, he was plus 17 in 2020, predicted in 2024. I think it goes back to the original, somewhere around there, plus 18, plus 19. I think it was closer than plus 17 in 2020. I think the exit polls are a little off, and they contradict each other. Montana Rich says, eye on the prize. I'll take 270 electoral votes anymore as bonus. I agree. Like, what are you doing to help Trump win Georgia? What are you doing to help Trump win Pennsylvania other than whining about how Josh Shapiro is going to flip Pennsylvania blue if he's on the ticket, which is not even how this works. He might help her there a little bit, but if he's picked, he's not just, old Governor Shapiro anymore. He's this guy that's on the ticket who is going to be attacked for the first time in his political career, and that's not a good thing. Eaters of Dead says, what's your take on Paul Ryan's Fox News poll showing Harris beating Trump? Well, I didn't see a national poll. There were statewide polls. They have Trump up, I believe. If you want to look at the polls, in Pennsylvania, they, I think, have a tie. Michigan, they have a tie. Wisconsin, they actually have Trump up in Wisconsin, which they usually don't have in most cases. So Ash K2 says many people are energized about Kamala indicating a 2008-style victory, especially since the Taylor Swift endorsement is going to be Gen Z D plus 30. I disagree. Gen Z was probably what, D plus 20. It's probably going to be D plus, not even D plus 20. People are not energized about Kamala in terms of the electorate that matters. You have people that are being paid to post stuff. That's it. Oh, wow, I saw a TikTok from Harry Sisson. Nobody likes that guy. These people are insufferable. The Swifties, by and large, insufferable. You know, a lot of people complain whenever she gets put on the TV of a primetime football game that her boyfriend's playing in because they're fed up. So as much as people might like Taylor, if Taylor Swift endorses Kamala, it's not going to move the needle really any much. It's not like she's, was going to endorse Trump anyways. Some people that listen to their artists, they either share the political views of the artist or they don't share the political views of the artist, but then they also happen to, listen to their music because they like the music. I mean, there's plenty of liberal musical artists that I might enjoy. Doesn't mean I care about their politics or that they have any influence over me, because they don't. Like, I'd prefer people to be on our side, but we don't have the culture. A lot of these people anyways are industry plants and it's been that way for going back decades. So if we controlled the culture, a lot of these artists that are promoting the establishment would probably be promoting Trump if we actually had control over the institutions, which we don't. So it still doesn't really move the needle. Celebrities, how did that work out for Hillary Clinton? Not very well. I mean, Beyonce at the time was, she was probably the largest cult following, didn't really help sway any votes for Hillary. The people went to the concerts that Hillary was at, and they, in many cases, didn't vote for her. Republic Messenger says, make less prediction videos and more about how we can get involved in swing states. Make Lichtman wrong again. I think we could do both. I don't think that you can't do both of those things at once. Josh Light says, Rep, if Trump wins, should he consider Mark Levin for Attorney General? I mean, I don't know. I don't really know his record. I know he's a Fox News host, and he's counter-signaled populism, and he's been a never Trumper in the at least for the primary. So I don't know if that's somebody that Trump would want to award, although Trump references him as one of the legal scholars that defended him through his cases, which is true. IMS Charles says, could Democrat voter fraud and millions of illegal placed in swing states enable Kamala to steal? The illegals in many cases are not going to be able to vote. I mean, this is plain and simple. A lot of these reports you see are not necessarily real. Some of them will find a way. Some of them have found a way. Some of them probably are going to vote for Trump, to be honest. But again, I don't think that we need to be focused on that. The RNC has already spent a lot of money on lawyers and things of that nature. Democrats are furious about that. I wonder why. Just an American says, hey, new voter from Texas. I'm really worried about the election. I hear many people say Kamala can win because she beats Joe in the polls easily. Well, she's doing, what, a point better? Maybe 2, depending on how you look at these aggregates. I mean, folks, Kamala Harris is not this world beater. I don't know why people are acting like she is. Republicans would have salivated at the opportunity a few months ago. Oh, we're going to go up against Kamala Harris. A lot of Republicans said they didn't want Biden replaced because they were afraid that Biden would be replaced with somebody like, I don't know, they said Michelle Obama. I think that she's also overrated. But if they knew Biden would be replaced with Kamala, they would have been like, yeah, replace him. Why not? Maybe not after the debate, but before the debate, yeah. I mean, people were worried about Gavin Newsom. They were worried about all these people. But no, none of those people were going to run. You talk about what's going on for Kamala Harris. She's the nominee, and she's probably the weakest choice they could pick, by far. I mean, you want to sit up here. Can you name anybody who you would rather Trump go up against that's a prominent Democrat than Kamala Harris? Other than Joe Biden doesn't count. But can anybody name? I'll look in chat. Can anybody name anybody that they'd rather go up against than Kamala Harris? I can't think of any. I can't. Plain and simple. AOC, okay, well, that's not realistic. Like AOC, Bernie Sanders, the squad, like the fact that that's who you're saying says a lot. Some people say Buttigieg, maybe. Pocahontas. I think they're about on par. Actually. Hillary. I actually would be a little bit more afraid of Hillary, to be honest. Just saying. She is very skilled politically. People say she's a weak candidate. No, she was a very strong candidate. It's insulting to Trump to say otherwise. A lot of people said at one point Hillary Clinton was unbeatable. So let's speed run these super chats so we can get to some of the calls. Justin American says, hey, new voter from Texas. Oh, we did that one. Faisal R says, I think it comes down to ballot harvesting and watching polls. Remember 2020. Exactly. We got to get out and vote. Period. Take people with you. Some people are saying Stacey Abrams would be too easy. But I'm saying realistically speaking, Kamala is probably the best one. I'd be afraid of Fetterman, honestly. Fetterman like 2 years ago, yeah, but Fetterman now, I'd be a little bit afraid. Just saying. John Waffle says, what are your thoughts on the disgusting opening ceremony? As an Orthodox Christian, it made my blood boil. Exactly. No other religion is going to get mocked this way. And so many Christians are just, I don't know, they're just ambivalent to it. It's sad. But you have people that are mocking the faith that built the West, essentially. They're tearing it down. They're mocking it. It's satanic. It's godless. And it needs to stop. And this is what happens when Christians shy away from institutions. You got to take it back. End of discussion. The Olympics 100 years ago never would have happened. 10, 15 years ago never would have happened. It needs to stop. And it made a lot of people, not just in this country, probably Eastern Europe was more furious than we were. M says, we'll leave out the first 2 words, but, we're trying to get vanced one day in the future. Spacely says childless women ruin our school boards. Exactly, like you're stereotypical. And they say, these are the same people that say Karen. They're not wrong, depending on how they use it, but usually they misuse the term. But you could say Karen, but the second Vance critiques those type of people, then he's evil. He's a horrible misogynist. Like these same people do the same thing, plain and simple, but they get a pass because they control the institutions. They have the power. We don't have the power. Ash K2 says, sorry, I'm skeptical of your 2022 prediction. Well, if you've heard the explanation for the 2022 prediction, it probably would make you more optimistic about 2024. It's plain and simple. I think Donald Trump not being on the ballot was a major issue for Republicans, and they've got to deal with that because when Trump's not on the ballot, a lot of these candidates that get underfunded and low name rack, they don't set the narrative, they lose. Peter Gabriel Self-Suck for 20 says, what is the HAVV problem that we keep hearing about? That's the what's it called? The Social Security number. That's fake. See, that's the thing. Like, so many people repeat this. It's demoralization. That's what they're trying to do. I'm not saying the people that are sharing it are. They may be concerned, but like who's ever starting this is like an op because it's not real. There are not that many new voters in Texas every week. It'd be impossible. I mean, you wouldn't be able to walk outside because you'd be running into a new voter. You know, there'd be just too many of them. Chico's Monkey Farm says, would it be a good policy for Republicans to support paid parental leave going forward in favor of foreign wars that would have funded it? Probably. Like, they're mad at Vance, but Vance is like actually probably helping the ticket in that regard. He wanted to talk about pro-life policy. He wanted to make giving birth free. That would probably disincentivize a lot of these abortions, and people would just put babies up for adoption more likely, which there's a lot of people on the backlog for adoption. BB says MSM is actually reporting on Kamala's record. It's good. Well, they're kind of forced to. They probably are now questioning, can she win? Maybe we want her out. Who knows? Aaron Albano says also tell people Trump will end the war and Ukraine spending. That's true. Sam Madsen says, if we win this time, I don't want to win in 28 because I don't want Democrats to control redistricting in every purple state. Well, I mean, it just depends on how things go. I guess 2028 would be like that. Or at least for the midterms, I assume you mean. Rhino Mocker says, why hasn't Nebraska's legislature attempted to change its system? Because Republicans are losers. Roman Wolf Gaming says, win Hawaii and New Hampshire, you just need one math speaking. Well, Hawaii is a tough nut to crack. Biden probably was weaker than Kamala. She's kind of got this like island persona going on, I guess. Kamala, the coconut, whatever. I mean, that's like, if there's any place that appeals, it's probably Hawaii. Tom Cook says she was also the deciding vote on a lot of bad legislation. That's also true. Maryland Degati 83 says, do you think Trump will win Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and others with the slow-paced election results? Yeah, I don't think he's going to lose Wisconsin because they're dropping the Milwaukee drop first regardless, which is good. Spartan Speedrun says, Trump says Christians don't vote much. He was asking us to vote just this time so we could beat the F and fix the election laws, mentioned voter ID. Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong. Like, they'll take everything. Like, Trump isn't allowed to tell a joke. And they're like, oh, well, you're just saying he meant to say something else every time. And it's like, well, no, he actually did. Like, he's not a career politician. You know, plain and simple. He gets a pass and you don't. And you're upset about it because some double standards are good and exist for a reason. Rocket321 says, do you think Trump will reduce legal immigration? Well, he did in his first term. I'd hope he does it more. I think that having somebody like Vance who supports the RAISE Act by his side could help him. Rhino Mockers is curious if you sent your resume to Project 25. I did not do that. Pendoc says, I already see polls where she has a positive approval rating and my whole social media is filled with she's a queen. She's much more liked than Hillary was. Well, first of all, that doesn't say a whole lot. Second of all, a lot of it's fake. A lot of it's still fake. Kamala Harris is being astroturfed at peak capacity. Just for the record, it doesn't take a week for people to come to that conclusion. Plain and simple. If you, very likable people in politics with cult followings, it takes a very, very, very long time to build that up. So either you have a lot of people jumping to the, anxiety attack of, oh, we might be able to win, hype her up. That's one thing. But, that one poll with a positive approval rating belongs in the garbage can. I don't care if she ends up winning. That poll still is garbage and belongs in the garbage can because all the other polls that even show her gaining don't show that. Eric from Wisconsin for $50 says, I won't mention you-know-who in this one. I'll just say thank you for the great content. Well, thank you for the 50. Temporal Forces says, evening rep, I just wanted to say that I think people are just afraid of Democrats' ability to manifest destiny, especially with fudge polls and wall-to-wall propaganda. I think Trump will overcome. Look, people don't understand how bad Trump had it in 2020. They don't. And he's still doing better than he was a month ago. So, what do people want? What do people want? Bailey Spangler says, I think one of the reasons they're spending in Florida is for the abortion referendum and not for Harris herself. I mean, it doesn't matter. The reverse coattails aren't real, but I guess you're saying they're trying to help Harris so it passes, but it doesn't matter really in the grand scheme of things because it could pass on its own. Why are you not trying to win the presidency? Why are you not putting resources? Or, at least Montana makes sense even because it's a Senate race. Ohio even, because there's a key Senate race that you need to hold on to. But Florida, because, they might go, put an amendment on the Constitution. Like abortion legislation, referendums, typically, history would show that it could pass on its own, period. Same thing with the weed stuff. Not necessarily saying it's a good thing that it's going to pass, but the fact that they're spending, it is incompetence in my book. If I was running their party, and I'm not trying to give them free advice, but it's not like they care what I have to say anyways, why would I be doing that? They're talking about Mississippi. There's articles about it. Oh, black women will flip Mississippi for Kamala. It's like these people are delusional. Silent Knight 62 says, wow, county resident here. When is Trump going to start showing ads in Wisconsin? Well, MAGA Inc. is up in the air in Pennsylvania, I believe. Wisconsin, I don't know. It should be happening soon. Should be happening soon. He's already winning Wisconsin, but yeah, I agree. Get on the air as soon as possible, especially now because you have to define Kamala Harris. The strategy's different. They're probably not going to spend much until Labor Day, but they do need to get on the air and at least have a presence so they don't, allow Harris to start defining herself, which again, I'm not worried about her defining Trump. Trump is already defined. Nothing she says about Trump will impact anybody's position on Trump at this point. It's going to be, can we define Harris? Plain and simple. So we'll see. Someone said save the ads until after the DNC. Possibly a good strategy. We'll see. LinRx52 for 10 says Kamala isn't tough or easy on crime. She's an opportunist and transactional. She weaponized her office to help her friends hurt her enemies and make political points any way the wind blows. I agree with you. That's not a bad take. People are like, Trump donated to Kamala Harris once. It's like, because she's easy to buy. Like, this was, 2011? Different time. But that's, not a knock on Trump. If anything, it's a knock on her. She's easy to buy off. Sam Madsen says, how much does Shapiro's approval rating drop if he's picked? Probably 10 points, honestly. Because people are like, wait, he's joining Kamala Harris? Your average well-meaning voter in Pennsylvania that was going to vote for Trump no matter what is not going to approve of Josh Shapiro. And even if Shapiro did pull Harris over the finish line in Pennsylvania, that's not really a good sign for her in the other Rust Belt states because that would mean that they're voting for Shapiro, not Harris. And Shapiro doesn't have the appeal in the other places because he hasn't been governor there. And he's going to probably have to move a little bit to the left in the national stage anyways. Hamster Eater 96 says Swifties mobilized to get the leftist candidate elected in Argentina last year. He lost a based Javier Milei in a landslide. Well, that shows you how these things go. Oh, this TikTok trend. It's like TikTok is not what wins elections. Plain and simple. Young people on either side don't turn out. I think we'd probably do better if our people turned out. I think Trump is going to do very well with young men. I think he's going to do very poorly with young women. Not all young women, but young minority women probably 80-20 for Kamala. Young white women probably 60-40 for Kamala. Young white men, I think, is probably going to be like 70-30 for. You'd hope. I don't know I don't even know how you can be a white man in general, straight white man, and vote for Kamala Harris. It just breaks my brain. But, beta male Redditors, I guess, that's the only thing you have. Nick Felstead for 31 Australian says, keep up the good work. Australia is hoping for Trump to get up in November. There wouldn't have been a VP pick that Republicans and the media wouldn't have gone after. We should ignore the Vance hate. I agree. I think Trump is, and Vance is playing it pretty well, too, so I can't say it's a bad thing for sure. Let's see. More super chats. Bunch Bear says Karens are spoiled, redacted. I guess. John Waffle H2P says my brother said if it's Vance v AOC in 2028, she wins in a landslide. That's not even close to true. Vance could probably neutralize some of that appeal anyways. But I think you'd probably see a neoliberal, neocon third party. But there's no way the DNC is dumb enough or incompetent enough, even though they're overrated in terms of competence, but they're not incompetent enough to let AOC get the nomination. They're just not. I would dream to go against AOC, but we'll see. I mean, Kamala Harris and AOC are very similar people in many regards. AOC probably got by a lot more on merit, though, in her career. I don't think AOC did any sussy stuff to get some political points, at least that I'm aware of. She's a bartender. She ran a grassroots campaign. Disagree with everything it stands for, but there's got to be some merit in that. Mike Griffin says, I'm worried that Republicans aren't turning out the base. Do you know if the RNC is registering more non-college educated rural whites? Well, that's a question. I don't know to what extent they are, but I do know that they have started to do this thing. We talk about, Trump talked about it, about churches, drop boxes and ballots there, and there's more places there. They're doing some things. They're chasing ballots. To say they don't have a ground game is dumb, but it is a lot harder when you talk about rural areas, when houses are farther apart. But I agree. I still think Trump is favored, though, even with the current electorate. 2020 electorate, he'd still be favored. Temporal Forces says, I cannot imagine Kamala commanding the respect of any foreign leader, especially Putin Xi or Kim Jong-un. The threat of war skyrockets with her. Exactly. They'll say, well, that's because you're saying that because she's a woman. It's like, no, I'm saying it because it's true. She's weak. She's dumb. It's not because she happens to... Hillary Clinton was smart. She was evil, but she was smart. It's not necessarily a race or sex thing. Barack Obama, smart. Obviously evil to an extent. A lot of these people are. Their policies are. They're, obviously not good people. But Biden, white man, stupid. Kamala Harris, non-white woman who happens to also be very much of a individual that's not of the highest intellect, and that we know. But it's not necessarily because of that. But people will say you can't say that because of that, and it's like, well, why not? These double standards are a problem. You can't attack Kamala because she happens to be a woman. No, because you attack her on her merits. That's what you're doing. Plain and simple. But her policies are radical. That's like the number one thing. Christopher Moore for 20. We have 3 more super chats, and then we'll get to the calls. I know we're going on late. Okay, make that 4. But Christopher Moore says, may I ask your opinion on the Pennsylvania Senate? Do you think McCormick could outseat Senator Casey? Well, the last poll has him down by like 15, but I don't think it's like that lopsided. I think it's going to be like within 5 still. I don't think the lag is going to be that much down ballot. Keegan Lowe says, another thing about Taylor Swift, at least 50% or more of her base are not old enough to vote. Could be even higher. It's technically true. Hamster Eater 96 says, our primary turnout was good even in California. Yeah, Arizona, they're killing it. We'll stream on Tuesday the results, by the way. Pendoc says, how can young white men be 70-30 when in general Trump leading all white men 60-40? Well, I think it's a generational thing, honestly. Boomers just, I vote Democrat my whole life. I'll just vote Democrat. I don't like Trump, whatever. But I think that Trump probably wins them. You'd think by more than that against Kamala. You would hope so. BB says, did you watch Elon Musk's parody of Kamala's ad? I think I did see it. I saw some like AI thing that was funny. But anyways, guys, we're going to go to the calls, and we're going to keep it really quick. And I'm not saying this to necessarily try to cut people off, but keep in mind we got 1,300 people still here. Make sure you guys like the stream and subscribe. I think we hit it. We probably hit 189K, which is good. And we did. Make sure you guys like and subscribe. Let's hit 1,000 likes. But we're going to get to the calls. We have a few people here already. We're going to go just down the list, and we're gonna take some calls here. But the main thing I want to say and get the people's opinion on, and we'll keep it quick, more confident, less confident, and why. We've done this before, but like, how confident are you? What % chance of victory do you think that Trump is going to have? We'll go from there. We'll start off with ASNS. ASNS, you're on the air. How's it going?
Hey, Rep, what's good? I'm doing all right. So I couldn't really hear the question that was posed for the call-in, but I do just want to comment that I have noticed that a lot of people who may not necessarily have had Vance as their first choice, they're expressing doubts, but there's a lot of infighting right now because anybody who was already supporting Vance as the pick before he was picked is just calling any even expression of doubt in him as automatically dooming. And I just want to
so you're saying that the original Vance backers you think are making it worse by engaging with these people, or like what's the deal?
Yeah, well, because if you didn't support Vance as the VP pick initially, you might still have doubts about him. But the fact that even expressing any of those is considered like going against the party, it's turning into a situation where I think it really doesn't matter anymore.
No, it doesn't matter, and I agree to an extent. I think that you have people that they may express doubts, but the problem that I see is I see just too many doubts. Like it's just just Trump is going to lose because he's going to pick Vance all over again, all over the timeline. I don't think it's healthy. That's what I'm seeing. Yeah. I don't think that there's
I will say
anyone
Twitter
is free from criticism, and you're right about that. It's not real life. Even the polls they point to are they're kind of, I guess you would say, they show them underwater, but they don't even show his negatives being like anywhere near 50 either. There's just a lot of people that don't know him, plain and simple, and a lot of Republicans are just like meh. But in terms of the question I was going to ask, and I want to get everyone to keep it pretty quickly here because I know it's getting late.
Sure thing.
Kind of a lightning round thing. Confidence level with Harris obviously might be lower than with Biden. But, what percent, what level of confidence, do you have a percentage level that you think Trump is going to win? What is it at right now?
I'd say right now it's at about 70, and that's coming down from like an 80, 85 with Biden. Because I think once the honeymoon phase is over, and with the power that social media and such have now to go against the mainstream media's lies about the borders are and all of that, the fact that it's able to be countered so fast, I think that the astroturfing is not going to work as well as they're hoping.
Well, yeah, especially now, Elon at Twitter, it's a different system. There's not censorship of news stories like there was in the 2020 cycle, and that's something people forget about. But and last question before we go on and move on here, you said it was an 80 or 85% with Biden. I tend to agree with pretty much your assessment here, but what percent was it before the debate with Biden? Was it at 80 or was it like still where it is, what you have it at now?
So before the debate, it was already obvious. The only people that it wasn't obvious to were people who only watch mainstream media. So I would say before the debate, it was higher than it is now, but not as high as the 80-85 that the debate brought.
So you'd say like 75-ish?
Yeah, 75.
Okay. Well, anyways, thank you for calling in ASNS. We'll move on to the next caller. We're going to go to Ben. We're going to go to Ben Dover. Very entertaining name there. How's it going, Ben?
Good.
So we're just asking the confidence interval. We always ask more confident or less confident, but this time I think we're going to take it in terms of percentages. So where were you at before the debate with Biden, before Biden dropped out, and where are you at now percentage-wise? If you could just go, I guess.
Yeah, I think before the debate, I was personally leaning towards Trump, maybe 60-40. I wasn't so sure. There was a lot of unknowns given, the convictions, the indictments, and I think that was before the judge dismissed the case against him in Florida, and he had the sentencing coming up. So there was a lot of unknowns, and plus, Biden was the incumbent. So I thought that there was a solid chance that he could pull something through. Then after the debate, I think it was more to it's like 90-10. I think there's no way in hell he wins this one. And for like the first time, I think he probably loses Virginia, Minnesota, maybe even New Hampshire. I think with Harris in the race, I'm still pretty confident. I'm still going to give it like a 70-30 chance. I think this could end up being like 2004, where, there's a kind of optimism in the Democrat Party that they're going to win, but come election day, I think Trump is going to win by 1 to 2 points nationally.
So the popular vote. Okay. Thank you, Ben. Appreciate the call in. We're just we're moving along quickly here. It's nothing personal to anybody in chat. We just want to get the calls, and we're going to go alphabetical order. Christian Arnold. Christian, you are on the air. How's it going?
Right. It's going well. How are you?
Doing well. So we're doing the confidence interval. Percent chance of Trump winning in your book before the debate with Biden, then before Biden dropped out, and then now. Where are we at with the numbers here? Where are we moving?
So before the debate, I thought that Trump had a decent chance. I'd probably say 70 something, mid 70s, simply because of Biden's unpopularity. And if you look at the numbers, Trump probably he only lost the election in total every state by what 40 something to 40,000 votes,
Yeah,
something like
40,
that.
43,
And
I think it was
yeah,
where we settled in.
43.
Yeah.
And that's nothing. That's nothing. Statistically, you have Biden, whose favorability, approval rating, everything just completely, dipped. Statistically, it feels impossible that he wouldn't be able to gain enough traction to win every state that he lost. But after the debate, that probably skyrocketed. I'd give it high 80s. But now I'm a little skeptical with Harris. Although I understand that she seems to have the momentum. I know it's just a honeymoon. I'd give it 63 to high 60s. But the thing with Harris is she has mild suburban appeal, virtually no Sun Belt appeal, no Christian base, Bible Belt struggle. And then, if she chooses Shapiro, that could sort of, alienate her Arab voters. So it's just a complete who knows for me at this point.
Yeah, I mean, I understand where you're coming from because it is true. The dust has not fully settled. There's so much stuff that we, just don't quite know yet. And that's kind of the way it is. But anyways, thank you, Christian, for
Yeah, no problem.
calling
Thank
in.
you.
Yeah, we appreciate the input. We're like aggregating all the numbers. Basically, it's like somewhere, in my head, obviously, it's somewhere in the 60s, I feel like, what people are at right now. By the way, just for the people in the Discord chat, putting an exclamation point in front of your name is very clever. It's not necessarily going to move the spot in line, I will say. But we'll go to D. You were on the air. Feel free to unmute Dova Budgie 100. You're on the air.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you loud and clear.
All right, just making sure my mic was not working for a second there.
So the question, I'm sure we're doing the percentages this time of confidence. What was your confidence interval, percent chance Trump was going to win before the debate, which was only a month ago and 2 days, and then before Biden dropped out, which was a week ago, and then where is it right now?
So prior to Biden dropping out, my percentage personally was I thought this was just in the bag at that point. Like, I know I absolutely agree with what you're saying. Like, do not get complacent. And so no matter what, I'm going out there and voting. And I will say that once Biden dropped out percentage-wise, like, I kind of felt like this just feeling of like, all right, they're going to try and pull something tricky here with how it's like just like before in the 2020 election, like they're going to try and pull out some kind of strange leftist magic. But honestly, though, like after just like thinking over it a little bit, I'm still honestly very, very confident at this point. Like I'm probably not less than 90% confident that Trump still's got this in the bag. And I'm once again, I'm still going out there and voting. I'm still talking to everybody that I can into going and voting. I've found people that, like, just watching your talking points, especially after the assassination attempt, for example, how people are going to now see, like, this more sympathetic side to Trump. And now here I am seeing that exact thing being spoken about with people who weren't typically Trump supporters to begin with now that are saying, you know what, I'm putting my support out there for Trump, and I'm helping along with that as well, telling them like, get out there and vote for him. It's the best thing we can do at this point. So confidence high, very, very high. I think he's still got this.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree that a lot of people are dooming unnecessarily. I think that there is a lot we don't know about the state of the election still, even now. But I will say that Trump is still the favorite, and I can't imagine people that were voting for Trump, even if they're like independents, flocking to Kamala Harris. I think this was more of an energy pick, more so than anything else, in terms of helping.
You're absolutely right about that. I agree. That's something I did actually want to bring up too, is that seriously, there's no way that Kamala jumping into this is going to bring her any kind of support. Like you said this a number of times already, which I agree with, that nobody is leaving the Trump camp for Kamala. That's just absolutely out of the picture. There's no way that's going to happen. But in terms of new support for Kamala, like it's to me, I don't see anybody that's was a Kamala supporter to begin with, let alone, somebody who's going to be like, okay, yeah, now that Kamala's in this race, it's not Biden anymore. Like, I don't see her bringing new support whatsoever. If anything, I feel like Biden probably was going to have more support than what Kamala would have. And what we're seeing now with the whole, like, closer race, it's just, to me, it just seems like
AstroTurf is what you're saying. It's fake. It's
yes.
a fake surge, and it could be.
Yes.
We are going to move on. Appreciate the call for Dova.
Absolutely.
But it's true, and I'll tell this to the people before we take the next call, that this is a pot. I mean, it could be real. It could be. It could be because of the media, it could, obviously, but there's a chance it's a manufactured surge. That's not to say the pollsters are trying to do this anyways, but it's that, people are going to be more likely to respond because this is more of a Democrat enthusiasm bump, or they're more likely to take those polls. I think we got to wait and see. I don't think we need to act like everything is good anyways. We need to make sure we do our part, but we gotta keep fighting. Fight. That's what Trump said. We'll move on to, I think up next is On Point Politics, but he's deafened. I'll give him a second if he wants to come in the call, and if not, we'll go to the next person. But we'll give him a second, and he is still deafened, so we'll go to the next person. Oh, he did okay. Okay, never mind. Here you are. So we're talking percentages tonight, and we'll go to the next.
Wait, I'm here.
Okay, you gotta mute the stream. Mute the stream in the background.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
I muted it.
Yeah, it's all good.
All right.
So we're doing percentages, just lightning round. We have a few people here, but we're talking about confidence interval. Percent before the debate, percent before Biden dropped out, and then percent with Kamala Harris as the nominee as things stand right here today. So what's your percentages you're gonna?
Honestly, after the debate, I was like pretty confident that Trump was gonna get that in the bag. Probably like basically 80 to 20%. Now that Harris is the nominee, I would say maybe it's like 60-40, maybe even like 70-30 to Trump. Now, this is not to say that people should get complacent at all. That's not what I'm saying. And a lot of people who know me, I have a little bit more of a bullish prediction for Trump in my forecast because I take into account approval ratings, which tend to be a little bit more of an accurate way of predicting elections. They're more accurate than any national or state poll you could really look at. And so that's a big part of my model. And I look at the disapproval ratings and things like that. And that kind of tends to factor in the overestimation of a candidate. And it seems to me that Harris would probably be overestimated. I have Trump probably winning the popular vote by about 5 points. So I'd say that I'm still confident that he's going to win the election. Now, is this a manufactured surge? I mean, it could be, but overall, I think that there's definitely a response bias because obviously the work that I've done SoCal research, there's definitely a big response bias. And for people that don't understand, like we had a D plus like 12 sample in the national vote. Even like 2008 was like maybe D plus 4. If that, maybe it was even less than that. Like D plus 11 to 12 samples never happened nationally. And so you have to weigh when there's a big response bias like that, people, they have to weigh by party. And a lot of pollsters are not weighing necessarily by party like that. And that's why
here's another thing, too. Biden's approval rating miraculously recovering. And Kamala Harris, who was doing worse than Biden in the polls, in many polls, when Biden drops out, miraculously shoots ahead. That's got to beg a lot of questions because nobody was really attacking Kamala. It's just strange.
Her surge that she's gotten there's definitely something manufactured there because if you look at the graph, it's like the most unrealistic gain for anybody's approval ever. Like that's like never happened before. Like even Obama's and Bush's graphs have never fluctuated like that. Like you can look at presidential approval ratings. None of their approval ratings have ever fluctuated like that before. So I think that there's definitely some sort of response bias going on. And I think that people who are dooming, like Rufus, that I'm now getting into arguments online now, he is definitely dooming unnecessarily. I'm even questioning the fact if he's paid opposition.
I'll say this. First of all, I don't think he's been around for a while, not even before his Twitter in the sphere. But that being said, looking at the graph, it is true. And Trump's is going up too. So it's possible there's a low response bias among independents because pollsters are just getting too many people that are just leaning right and left. That's why there's so few undecideds, which is another possible thing. You think there might be more now that Biden's out of the race. You have somebody that's lesser known. But again, you're right. So you said, just to get the numbers, you said it was 80-20. Or before the debate, you said it was, you said 70-30 and then 80-20. And then what is it now?
Like 65-35. I think Trump is still the heavy favorite to win.
So
I have him. Yeah, I have him winning all the swing states by over 5 points in my model. Now, may I get it off by a couple points? Possibly, but I don't think it's going to be 7-8 points off. I mean, I've tested this to previous elections, and the 2020 model with the new approval rating system, it was actually almost pretty spot on. I only got a couple states wrong with it. So it's not like, it's like the worst model ever.
Probably better than some old man with his little keychain. But
better than 538.
That too. But anyways, we will move on. Thanks for calling in, though. Appreciate it.
I get one more point about Kennedy. I want to mention
one point about Kennedy.
It's like now that he's like going down in the polls, I feel like what's happening is that also has to do with the Democrat response bias as well. Like I think Kennedy going down that much, where he's lost 4 points nationally in literally 4 or 5 days, I think that's also manufactured too. I think that has to do in part with the response bias as well, because independents have also been pretty undersampled too. So
it could be.
That's all I have to say about that.
It could be. There's a lot we just don't know. But anyways, thanks for calling in On Point Politics. I appreciate it.
All right.
We'll go next to Luke. We'll go to Luke. Luke, you are on the air. How's it going?
It's going good. What was the question? I actually just found out you were streaming.
Oh, no problem. So basically, we're talking confidence, and there's a lot of dooming, and obviously the race is more uncertain. That's basically goes without saying. But it's true that you look at these forecasts. Some people are saying that Kamala is, she's favored when she's not. But we go back to before the debate when the polls were less favorable to Trump. Now, what was your percent chance that Trump would win before the debate? What was your percent chance he would win before Biden dropped out? And what was the percent chance that he would win right now with Kamala as the nominee?
So what basically I had is I was generally expecting that before the debate, I'd say Trump probably had about a 65% chance or so to win. That's what I generally had it around. I think it was about a 65. I think probably went up to closer to 75 after the debate. And I think it kind of stood around there until Biden actually decided to drop out. And I'd say as of right now, I'd probably give, just given the uncertainty with Harris, I moved it down a little bit. So I think Trump probably has 62% chance to win. But I still think in the end, he's probably going to come out and win. I think that a lot of people saying
you're kind of breaking up a little bit with the static there. But anyways, appreciate the call nonetheless. We will move on. But I want to get to a couple super chats. But yeah, 62. I think that's fair. I think that's more than fair. I don't really buy this. Oh, well, she's favored. In what? Oh, she has a little bit of momentum, and it could be response bias. It very well could be. It might not be. I'm not saying it is, but it is a plausible theory because this is not natural. And you could say, well, people are just realizing that she's the nominee, so they'll view her favorably. That's what the convention is for. This is not natural. This again, I'm not saying the pollsters are intentionally doing it. It could be what kind of independent voters are they getting? That's another thing because we weighted down for it. But we had a lot more Democrat respondents in the poll. There's weighting. It's noticeable. Never had that before in the history of the polling firm. From what I understand, we'll go live. We have 3 people left. We'll do them quickly. Real Texan Politics, you are on the air. How's it going?
Hey, doing good.
So we're doing the 3 percentages of the confidence interval. We have pre-debate, % chance of Trump victory. We have pre-Biden dropping out, and then today. What are the percentages?
Before I get to that, I actually want to bring up On Point's thing about RFK, and I think another aspect of that I can probably see is that you may have some young voters that probably didn't like Biden. Maybe they were considering RFK, but now because Kamala's in the race, they have a more younger, fresher, more energetic face that they can support. And I think that could explain some of the RFK dip in the polling. I don't know if you could agree with that.
It's possible. No, I mean, it's 100% true. I'm not saying it's not, because it is true that a lot of people, like, I could understand why his numbers could dip. It could be response bias, less independence. It also could be, well, people, that were skeptical of Biden or didn't like Biden, maybe they'll just take the generic person. But obviously, Paris has not really fully been defined either way. So maybe they'll eventually shift back to RFK or maybe to Trump, who even knows. But
certainly possible, and that's the whole honeymoon period as a whole.
Yes.
But as far as confidence goes, I mean, I was about as confident as you can get right after the debate. Even before the debate, I kind of knew that Biden would screw up, and he did. When Kamala came in, I thought that Trump was probably about to pick off Minnesota, New Mexico, Virginia.
It was been bad,
et cetera, et cetera. But then as I see the polling, I'm starting to think, okay, maybe I'm getting a little overconfident. Maybe wait for things to settle down before I start, I guess, getting more confident. So I'd probably say maybe before Biden dropped out, I was probably 80s, 90s. Can never be 100.
No, but
now I'm probably in like maybe the 70s, the 60s. Because I do think there's probably a light at the end of the tunnel. But right now, a lot of Democrats are fired up. You have a new fresh face. You don't have the old, boring, feeble white guy to deal with anymore.
Just because there's a lot of turbulence doesn't mean the plane isn't going to make it to its destination. That's the way I see it.
Exactly.
I think that's the best way to put it. But anyways, Real Texan, thanks for calling in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
We will go to the last 2, but we have to get to super chats. Keegan Lowe says things in Venezuela are getting bad. Yeah, there's like the whole drama going on there. I haven't paid full attention. Ryan Mocker became a new member. CCM28 says Loomer exposed company working with Kamala campaign paying people for pro-Kamala content. Definitely astroturfed. Yeah, I mean, they exist, and they do exist, I guess, on our side too. I've been alleged a member of being paid for tweets and stuff before. It's not true technically, besides like the ad revenue, of course. But yeah, I think that it's clear, like the Harry Sisson guy, he's paid. Our liberal counterpart is paid. These people, they love Biden. No, we'll never replace Biden. He's going to do great. He's going to come back and win. Oh, the second he gets out there, oh, we love Kamala. Biden did the right thing. Oh, these people, it's crazy. Like, these are the same people saying Biden won the debate. They're just saying, it's like you have to almost respect it. Ryan Amaker says, new paid member, how do I join the Discord? Well, you became a site member or a YouTube member, which is confusing. I'm sorry. I did clarify. The website will get you in. If you DM me on Twitter or Instagram, I can shoot you an invite link and I'll get you in because you didn't know. But probably not on stream. But next stream can maybe have you call in, or the next call-in stream, which we were going to have one probably early next month, as soon as I get a chance. BW says, do you think Biden stays in office so Kamala doesn't lose votes over support for Israel or not give them free? I don't think Biden staying in office has much to do with it, but him in office does kind of allow Kamala to be a blank slate, but she's still tied to his administration. She covered up his health issue. She was one of the people that did. I mean, Pete Buttigieg admitted it today inadvertently. So again, like, I don't know what that really means. Kamala is probably more popular with like the Genocide Joe crowd, but I mean, it depends. Josh Shapiro as VP could change it. And it's not just because he happens to be Jewish. It's also because he like really cracked down on like the pro-Gaza people. Pendoc says new national poll Harris by 2. Is this like a new thing all over like social media, or is this like an old, like where did this poll come from? I don't really see the poll unless you're talking about the Reuters poll, which throw it in the aggregate. If we're going to have Rasmussen, it's fair to have Reuters, but they're not really that accurate. Armin the Great says, maybe this is temporary, but I've been disappointed with Republican attacks on Harris. Her being an unknown to most voters makes me nervous. I like the attacks I've seen. The ads, I mean, watch the ads. They're brutal. Like, there's so much, and they're putting it in the ads. I don't know what else you want them to do. Brother Logic RFM says the black female who got... Okay. Yeah, Trump and her in different ways, I guess. They're now repeating the George Floyd riots across. I mean, I don't know what you mean by that, but yeah, that super chat just doesn't make sense. Sorry, but thanks for the super chat. Inquiring Mind says, nice stream, first time here. Well, thank you. Subscribe. Hopefully you stay around. But we have a couple more people. Want to make sure I get the name right for this guy always calls in. Verlibertatum. Did I get it right that time?
Yes, you did.
All right, there we go. Well, welcome back on the air. So I'm sure you already know what we're doing here. We got the percentages, we got the pre-debate, we got the pre-dropout, and then we got today. So
okay,
what do we got here?
I know this whole audience is probably going to hear all this and be like, you're being too complacent, Veer. You're being way too optimistic. Frankly, this whole year, I've had his probabilities at about 90+%, and I'll tell you why. Number one, I think there's a lot of people now, and particularly in this election cycle, that are angry. I mean, they've seen what happened in 2021, when we had all those vaccine mandates and the entire left threw my body, my choice out the window. We had 2022 where obviously, yes, this is why I'm not putting it at 100%, because we have had a bunch of shortcomings in the past. And I think now leading into last year and this year, we've really got a taste of what rock bottom looks like. And honestly, I'm at a point now where I think there's so many snapshots and sound bites that we've all seen pre-debate, post-debate, and post-Biden dropout, where I honestly don't think it really matters who the left puts up at this point. I think there's just so much going in our favor this time. Frankly, at this point, whether Trump wins or loses, I think this is going to be a campaign that's going to be a once in a lifetime. We're never going to see something like this in our lifetimes again.
It's true. I mean, especially if Harris wins, it's over. Everybody knows it. So what percent would you put it at now? You said you had it at the 90s for a while, which honestly, I don't even think is that out of the ordinary, because clearly the Democrat insiders agreed with you. They had it at nearly 100, because otherwise, why would they push Biden out when he didn't want to be pushed out?
Yes. And, I have a bunch of left-wing, people in my circle where even they're like, this is ludicrous where the country's at. I even have some of those people even straight up arguing amongst themselves, who is actually running the country?
It's a good question. Well, I think usually the answer would be the next in line. That's who they're putting up. So you have a number for it? It's kind of what we're trying to gauge.
Still 90%.
You have it at 90.
Not changed one bit.
Okay. Well, you know what? I will say this. If Donald Trump was up in the polls by this much, before the election in 2020, I think most people would probably say it'd be a done deal. But I think a lot of people are, looking at 2020, some aspects of it, 2022, dooming off that. I get it. I understand it. I wouldn't be willing to put it that high, but I respect it. And, it's possible. You're right. I mean, we'll see how it shakes out until November, but anyways, Verlibertatum, thank you for coming on the air. Appreciate
I'll just say before I go, listen, the media is going to overhype this whole thing, and they're going to try and play games with us all they possibly can. Just remember, these are the same people that that said Trump falls down at rally after loud noises.
It's true. It's true.
Just remember that, everyone.
Yep. Anyway,
Take care.
thank you for calling. Appreciate it. We'll go to the last caller, Yukon representative. You are on the air. How's it going?
Hey, how are you, Red?
Doing good. So I'm sure you know what we're doing by now. We're doing the percentages, and I'll let you have the floor and give your take.
Well, thank you. So I would say post-debate that Trump was looking at least 95%. Pre-debate was looking at more like 80%. And reason for that being is I would have liked to put it pre-debate at like 95%, right? But the way he was doing his campaigning at the time is just looking at it, he wasn't really focusing on those key 2016 issues, which I think really do propel him in popularity. When you look at what's going on now, he's not really talking about trade as much. He's not really talking about those special interests as much. I think he's more calmed down now. He's talking about more establishment type issues like cutting taxes, socialism, healthcare, and all that. But even with Harris right now, I think he's looking at least 70% probability of winning. Because, like, as you've said in your videos, what appeal does she have exactly in the Rust Belt? You know, she's not an economic populist. She doesn't appeal to those Midwestern issues. And in the Sun Belt, she's regressing. You can look at those Georgia polls. You can look at those Arizona polls.
Really
she's just
bad
not
in
doing
Arizona,
good.
yeah. So what percent would you have it at now, you said?
I would say about 75%.
Okay. Yeah,
70,
I will push
75.
back on one thing you said about the more establishment issues, because it is true trade is probably not what he's mentioning a lot, but immigration is probably the number one thing. Immigration and crime, just watching him in Minneapolis, that's pretty much all I heard him talk about, for the record. I think with the economy, he kind of does this like routine. He'll mention trade a little bit. He'll mention taxes, which, obviously he still has to get in some of that stuff. But I think his messaging is a lot better than it was in 2020, and it's not even close. And some people say it hasn't improved, but I do disagree. I think it definitely has.
For sure, because in 2020, it was more about, he was talking about the riots and stuff, but on the economic issues, he was talking about, oh, look at my record. We're fighting socialism and all that. So it is better now, 100%. And I think with Vance, even though I do oppose Vance, Vance does at least talk about those Midwestern issues. He does at least talk about trade. He does talk about NAFTA. So that is a plus.
Yes. He definitely, that I think is why he was selected. And I think depending on how it goes down the stretch, he could end up being an electoral asset. There's just so much we don't know. People, I think, jumping to conclusions about that, I think should probably just relax a little bit as well, whether they wanted him to be picked or not. But anyways, Yakan, thank you for calling in. I appreciate it.
Definitely. Thank you for having me on.
No problem. All right, that'll do it for the stream calls. Appreciate all the callers. We've been going on for nearly 2 hours. We're going to wrap it up here. Rapid fire super chats. Dova Budgie 100 says, is Kamala the Hun choosing a VP soon? I think she has to choose one within like 2 weeks. We'll see who it ends up being. They're now saying Tim Walz is a front runner. Jim Clyburn said Pete Buttigieg would make a great VP. Oh, wouldn't that be something? I don't know. I don't think her VP is going to move the needle much either way, but Pete Buttigieg would be a gift. Tim Walz, he'll get a lot of hype on the Democrat side, but there's a lot of baggage there to the point where he could be a gift. He's definitely going to hurt the crime image, but Democrats are not complacent. They'll probably be like, oh, look, we called Vance weird. Haha, now we can pick a crazy VP and it's going to work because Vance weird. I hope they do that. I really do. It'll be the backfire of a century. Like Mark Kelly, I think scares me the most on paper, but again, in reality, he's kind of bland. Roy Cooper, someone said. Yeah, Roy Cooper, I think he was my first gut choice, and he might be the one she goes with. He doesn't move the needle much, though. He's generic, but North Carolina could get a point or two closer. That's like the home state bump, though. He's not really Roy Cooper's electoral success in the state's overrated. Anyways, real Texan politics is Maduro won a third term tonight despite the exit poll showing him losing in a landslide. Sounds like some shady stuff went down. Nothing new there. Well, Yeah, I mean, exit polls do suck, but if you lose in a landslide, yeah, Venezuela, probably some third world shenanigans going on. BW says, I meant that she's not going to stop sending Israel money so they keep Biden so she doesn't lose the leftoids. I wish Trump would hammer no tax on tips and income tax. Well, he is. He is. Big Hoss 81 says, I think RFK hurts us. I hope he misses the ballot in Wisconsin. Well, we'll see. We'll see if he even stays in the race. He probably does, but who knows? Again, the polls are weird right now, but Trump's still up, so, people should relax and let it play out. Raina Mocker says, did you see an expert analyzing the video of Crooks firing at DJT and there was no recoil, giving credence to the possibility of another? I don't know. I have no idea. It's possible that they just didn't show it. I don't know enough to comment on it. But thanks for the super chat. SJ says, do you think Trump will outperform the polls again? Well, if this is like a response bias, then probably, but there's so much we don't know. He probably does in the Rust Belt. He might underperform them here and there in the Sun Belt, but he's up by enough anyways to the point where it wouldn't matter unless he's like a 5-point underperformance, which I don't see happening. PennDoc says 51% of voters want Roe v. Wade back, while only 39% support Trump's moderate position. Well, first of all, that's not even that bad, honestly. But here's the deal. That's a leading question type poll. If you say decide it nationally or leave it to the states always wins too. So like Trump is at his rally saying, my position's more popular than hers by 8 points, which is a number that I came up with by, analyzing some of these polls like Economist, and he used it. I don't know if he got it from me. Maybe it was a long time ago. Big delay in the way it's moved its way up the ladder, but I mean, it's true. Trump's position is not like a third rail, and it gives pro-life people a reason to vote to protect. And again, people always want to say, yay, we overturned Roe, and the left uses it as a negative thing, but like we got to start changing our diction a little bit and start saying, no, don't use the word Roe. That's gone. We say, we brought you Dobbs v. Jackson, make it positive. Because the way we frame our words, you can't fall victim to the way they frame it. You got to frame it like, oh no, we didn't get rid of Roe v. Wade. We got Dobbs v. Jackson. Like that's the accomplishment, because that's the name of the new case, and we got to use it. So there's that. I think we're gonna end the stream. I appreciate the super chats. Hit that like button. Let's hit 1,000 likes before we end. We're 14 away. Subscribe if you're new. Hit the bell for notifications. Follow me on Twitter. Get me to 70K on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram as well. The links are in the description. Let's get to 10K on IG by Election Day. And I will see you guys in the next one. Red Eagle out.